It's for self-reflection. You might need it.
Oh my God.
I'm not the type of guy who wakes up on Father's Day expecting a big celebration or anything special. But I figured I'd at least get something better than becoming the punchline to a joke I didn't see coming. That Sunday morning in June started like any other. The sun was streaming through the kitchen windows, and I shuffled downstairs in my old pajama pants thinking maybe today would be different. Maybe today I'd actually feel like part of the family instead of just the guy who pays the mortgage and fixes things when they break. My wife Rachel was already in the kitchen with her favorite coffee mug, the one that says, "But first coffee," like it's the most relatable thing in the world. Her daughter Ashley was perched on the counter looking smug, and my stepson Ben was hovering near the doorway with his phone out. He had this look on his face like he was trying really hard not to laugh about something. I figured they were watching some funny video or something. "Happy Father's Day," Rachel practically sang it, holding out this plain cardboard box with a huge grin on her face. The kind of grin that should have been a warning sign. "Open it, open it." Ashley was bouncing excitedly, her phone also out now because apparently this moment needed to be documented. I took the box because what else was I supposed to do? I opened it, peeling back the flaps, and inside was a white ceramic mug nestled in tissue paper. For a split second, I thought maybe it would say something normal. "World's best stepdad" would have been fine. Even "world's okayest father figure" would have gotten a genuine laugh from me. But what it actually said in big, bold letters was, "World's biggest disappointment. Azramya." I just stood there holding this mug like it was evidence in a crime scene, waiting for someone to say, "Just kidding, here's your real gift." But that moment never came. Instead, they started laughing. Not little giggles, but full-on, doubled-over, can't-breathe laughter. Rachel was wiping tears from her eyes. Ashley was slapping the counter. Ben looked slightly uncomfortable, but was still filming every second of my humiliation. "Oh my God, your face," Rachel managed to gasp between laughs. "I told you he'd be shocked. It's hilarious, right?" Ashley added, like she was waiting for me to confirm that, yes, this was peak comedy. My face tried to decide between crying and rage-quitting life, but instead it settled on something worse. A smile. A big, fake smile that made my face hurt. Because that's what I always did in this house. I smiled, went along with it, played the good sport. "Thanks," I said, even throwing in a little laugh. I've always wanted my self-esteem in ceramic form. Really, this is perfect. That made them laugh even harder because of course it did. Rachel came over and patted my shoulder like I was a dog who'd just learned a trick. "See, I knew you'd get it. You always have such a good sense of humor about things." Yeah, a good sense of humor. That's what we're calling slowly dying inside while maintaining a socially acceptable facade. I set the mug down carefully and noticed breakfast was already laid out. Pancakes, bacon, eggs. Except none of it was for me. They'd already eaten. The dishes were piled in the sink, crusty with syrup and egg residue. "Oh, we already ate," Rachel said. "We thought you'd sleep in longer. But hey, feel free to make yourself something." Feel free. Like it was a privilege. "No problem," I said, still smiling. "I'll just clean these up first." And I did. I stood at that sink scrubbing dried pancake batter while they moved to the living room, their laughter fading into background noise. I thought about all the Father's Days before this one, the ties I'd gotten that I never wore, the cards that felt hollow because I wasn't really their dad, was I? But this was different. This wasn't just forgetting or being thoughtless. This was intentional. They'd specifically chosen a mug that said, "World's biggest disappointment," and thought, yeah, this is perfect for Mike. This is exactly how we see him. I dried my hands and made a quiet decision. Not a dramatic one, just a simple one. I was done. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, after I'd smiled through dinner and said goodnight like everything was normal, I packed a bag. Just the essentials. Clothes, my toolbox from the garage, and that last shred of dignity I'd been hoarding. I didn't leave a note or write some long explanation. What would have been the point? I just walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove. 2 weeks went by before I finally turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls from Rachel, 34 text messages, and then the Facebook post. She'd written this heartfelt plea. "Please, if anyone knows where he is, Tell him we just want him home. We love him and miss him so much. Attached was a photo of me from 2 years ago, looking happy at a barbecue. The comments were full of support for her, people praying I'd come back, saying I'd return when I was ready. Not one person knew she'd given me that mug. I ended up at this motel off the highway called the Sunrise Inn. $49 a night, and for that premium price you got paper-thin walls, a TV with 3 channels showing infomercials, and complimentary cockroaches that scurried across the bathroom floor like they had somewhere important to be. The guy at the front desk didn't even look up when I checked in, just slid me a key attached to plastic with the room number written in Sharpie, and went back to watching what looked like a documentary about aliens. No questions, no concerned looks, just cold, impersonal, beautiful business. Room 9 was exactly what you'd expect. One bed that sagged in the middle, a nightstand with a flickering lamp, a painting of a boat on the wall that was somehow both boring and unsettling. The carpet had that specific pattern designed to hide stains. I dropped my bag on the bed and just stood there, listening to the sounds. Someone was arguing 3 doors down. Above me, someone was either moving furniture or practicing wrestling moves. The ice machine down the hall made this grinding noise every few minutes. This was my life now. I spent that first week in a fog. I'd wake up, stare at the popcorn ceiling counting stains, shuffle to the convenience store for coffee that tasted like it'd been brewed in a tire, and maybe grab a breakfast burrito that was definitely older than it should be. My phone stayed off. I wasn't ready for what I knew would come eventually. When I finally turned it on to check my bank account because poverty waits for no man's emotional breakdown, that's when I saw it all. The calls, the texts, and that Facebook post that had been up for 3 days with 200 comments. I clicked on Rachel's profile because apparently I hate myself, and there it was, pinned to the top like a missing persons poster. The photo she'd used was from 2 summers ago at the neighborhood barbecue. I'm holding a grill spatula, wearing an apron that says, "Grill Sergeant," smiling like I just won the lottery. I looked happy in that photo. I looked like I belonged somewhere. The comments section was exactly what you'd expect. Sandra from Rachel's yoga class. "Praying for you, hun. He'll come back when he's ready." Kevin from my old job. "Bro, wherever you are, just know we're thinking about you." Rachel's sister Diane, who never liked me anyway. Some people just can't handle commitment. Stay strong, sis. Not one of them knew the truth. Not one person in that comment section had any clue that Rachel had given me that mug. That Ashley had filmed my humiliation like it was content for her social media. That I'd spent Father's Day scrubbing their dirty dishes while they laughed. But here's what really got me. The thing that made me actually laugh out loud in that depressing motel room. She'd said, "The kids are devastated." The same kids who'd thought world's biggest disappointment was comedy gold. The same kids who'd gone about their day after I left like nothing happened. The thing about rock bottom is you can only stay there so long before you either dig deeper or start climbing. And I'm not a digger by nature. I'm a fixer. That's what I do. I fix things. About 3 weeks into living at the Sunrise Inn, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the guy staring back. My hair was too long in an "I've given up" way. My beard had gone from rugged to "might be hiding birds in there," and I was wearing the same shirt for the 3rd day straight. "This is pathetic, Mike," I said to my reflection. So I did something radical. I took a shower, actually used soap everywhere, and dug through my bag for my least wrinkled shirt. Then I walked to the barbershop 2 blocks away, an old-school place called Sam's with a spinning red and white pole outside. Sam himself was probably 70 with forearms like Popeye. He didn't ask why I looked like I'd been living in the woods, just sat me down and got to work. 20 minutes later, I looked human again. Next stop was Willow Creek Hardware, a family-owned place I'd driven past about 100 times. I walked in and found the manager, a woman named Karen who had kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, and asked if they were hiring. She looked me up and down. "You know tools?" Like some people know their family members. Better, actually. She cracked a smile. "When can you start?" "Right now, if you want." Just like that, I had a job. Minimum wage plus commission. But it was something. It was purpose. The customers were exactly what you'd expect from a small-town hardware store. Old men who wanted to tell you their life story while shopping for a single bolt. contractors who knew exactly what they needed, and confused homeowners who'd started projects way above their skill level. I liked all of them because they treated me like a person. They asked my advice, laughed at my jokes, and the cashier Jenny flirted with me in that harmless, friendly way. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like I was someone. Not a husband, not a stepdad, not a punchline. Just Mike. Mike who knew the difference between a Phillips and flathead. Mike who could recommend the right drill bit for any job. Mike who existed independently of anyone else's narrative about who he was supposed to be. That's where I met Frank. He was a regular who came in at least 3 times a week, always needed something random, and always had a story. He was a retired Marine, about 65, built like he could still do 100 push-ups without breaking a sweat. "You know tools?" he asked the first time I helped him, sizing me up. "Started last week. You know anything, or are you one of those kids who just points at the computer?" "Try me." He rattled off a list that would have sent most people running, but I grabbed a cart and started pulling exactly what he needed. Toggle bolts, 3/4-inch zinc-plated wood screws, a specific brand of wood glue most people didn't even know existed. Frank watched me work, nodded approvingly, and when I finished, he said, "You actually know what you're doing. That's rare." That was the beginning of what I'd call a friendship. He started timing his visits for when I was working. We'd talk about projects, tools, eventually life. It was Frank who first said something that I'd been thinking but couldn't put into words. We were in aisle 7, fasteners and anchors, and he was telling me about his daughter's wedding. "Best day of my life," he said. "Getting to be her dad." I must have made a face because he stopped and looked at me. "What's that look?" "Nothing, just sounds nice." But nothing. It's nice. Family stuff is nice." In prison wasn't having it. He crossed his arms. "Listen, son, I've been coming to this hardware store for 15 years. I've seen a lot of employees come and go. Most of them are kids working summer jobs who barely look up from their phones. But you're different. You know what you're doing. You're good with people. And you look like someone kicked your dog, ran over your cat, and then came back to apologize, but the apology somehow made it worse." I opened my mouth to protest, but he held up a hand. "I'm not asking for your life story, but I am going to tell you something that took me way too long to learn. People who laugh at you aren't people who love you. They're just people who need an audience." Rejection. I stood there surrounded by fasteners and anchors, which felt deeply symbolic, and something in my chest cracked open. "They gave me a mug for Father's Day," I said. It said, "World's biggest disappointment." Frank didn't laugh or look shocked, just nodded slowly. "And you stuck around after that?" "For a few hours. Then I left." "Good. That's good." He grabbed his stuff and started heading to checkout, then paused and turned back. "You know what the thing about disappointment is, Mike? It's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of their expectations. And if their expectations were that you'd just take it and keep smiling, then disappointing them is exactly what you should do." I also started eating breakfast at Nora's diner every morning. It became my routine, my one consistent thing in a life that had gone completely off the rails. Nora's was one of those places time forgot, but in a good way. Red vinyl booths with duct tape covering the cracks, black and white checkered floor, spinning stools that squeaked. The whole place smelled like bacon grease and coffee that had been sitting on the burner too long, and it was perfect. The waitress Betty worked the morning shift. She was probably mid-50s with hair dyed an aggressive shade of red, and she called everyone sweetheart. She'd refill your coffee without asking, remember how you took it after the first visit, and had this gift for knowing when someone wanted to chat and when they just wanted to be left alone. "Morning, sweetheart," she'd say, coffee pot already in hand before I even sat down. "The usual?" The usual was 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, hash browns that were crispy enough to use as weapons. It cost $6.95, which felt like robbery. Some mornings when I looked particularly rough, she'd slide an extra piece of bacon onto my plate without charging me. Small gesture, huge impact. About 3 months in, I did something that seemed crazy at the time. I started a YouTube channel. I know, every middle-aged guy going through a crisis thinks he's going to become a YouTuber. I wasn't delusional enough to think I'd become famous, but I figured it would be a portfolio at least. Proof that I knew what I was talking about. I called it Fix It Frank because I'm terrible at naming things. And my first video was filmed on my phone, propped up on a stack of books in my motel room. It was about different types of screwdrivers and when to use them. Riveting content, I know. But I made it funny. Used the same sarcastic humor that had kept me sane through years of being the family joke. Except, this time I was in on it. "This is a Phillips head screwdriver," I said, holding it up to the camera. "Named after Henry Phillips, who invented it in the 1930s, and probably never imagined that 90 years later, a guy living in a motel would be explaining it to strangers on the internet." Unwilling to post it at midnight on a Tuesday, because I was too nervous to post during normal hours. Then turned off my phone and tried to sleep. Next morning, 53 views, 12 likes, 3 comments. "This is actually helpful, thanks. Subscribed, more please." Finally, someone who doesn't talk like a robot. Misled another video. Then another. Reviews of tools I'd used at work. Tutorials on basic repairs. A particularly unhinged rant about why people need to stop using duct tape for everything. That one went viral by my standards. 20,000 views in a week. Companies started emailing me. Small ones at first, asking if I'd review their products. They'd send me free stuff and I'd make honest videos. "This drill costs $49 and claims it can handle any job around the house." That's a lie. I used it to hang 3 pictures and it started smoking. Not metaphorically like it was cool. Actually smoking like it was about to catch fire. 0 stars. Don't buy this. The views kept climbing. My subscriber count hit 5,000, then 10,000. Companies I'd actually heard of started reaching out with sponsorship offers. Not enough to quit my day job, but enough to move out of the Sunrise Inn into an actual apartment. A 1-bedroom place above a pizza shop in downtown Willow Creek that smelled like pepperoni and possibilities. Frank helped me move, which was easy because I barely had anything. But I had a real bed frame now, a desk for editing videos, a bookshelf that was mostly empty, but made me feel like an adult. "Look at you," Frank said. "From motel to apartment, from disaster to minor internet celebrity. What's next?" Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm serious, Mike. You've done something here. You took a garbage situation and turned it into something. Most people just stay in the garbage and complain. You climbed out. Standing there in my new apartment, small and smelling like pizza but mine, I couldn't argue. He was right. I had done something. Meanwhile, I'd been worried about Ben, my stepson. He was the quiet one, who'd looked uncomfortable filming my humiliation, but still did it. He'd never really joined in on the jokes, just existed in the background, like a stagehand in a play he never auditioned for. I'd been so focused on getting away that I hadn't thought about how it would affect him. So about 4 months after I left, I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote a letter, an actual pen and paper letter, because some things deserve that weight. I sat at my desk with a pad from the dollar store and a pen from the hardware store and started writing. The first draft was terrible, too angry. I crumpled it up and started again. The second was too casual. Third time felt right. "Hey, bud," it started, because that's what I'd always called him. "I'm okay. I know you're probably wondering where I went. Or maybe you're not. I don't know what your mom told you, but I wanted you to hear it from me. I didn't leave because of you. Sometimes adults need to step away to find their peace. That sounds vague and probably frustrating, but the truth is complicated. I'm not going to badmouth your mom, but I can't pretend everything was okay when it wasn't. I stayed as long as I could, tried as hard as I could, and eventually had to choose between being there and being okay. I chose okay. I hope someday you understand that. You're a good kid, Ben. Quiet, but good. You've got this way of seeing things that most people miss. Don't lose that. If you ever want to talk, I'll be at Willow Creek Library on Saturday at 3 p.m. Just sitting there, probably reading something boring. If you show up, great. If you don't, I understand. No pressure, no expectations. Take care of yourself, bud. And remember, you're not responsible for other people's happiness, just your own. Mike. That Thursday, I drove to his school, Waited in the parking lot feeling incredibly creepy until I saw him come out. Headphones in, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking at his phone. Ben. He looked up and his face cycled through about 17 emotions in 3 seconds. Mike, what are you doing here? I wanted to give you this. I held out the envelope. I know it's weird, but I didn't have your number and didn't want to contact you through your mom. He took it slowly. Is everything okay? I'm fine. Better, actually. Read the letter. It explains everything. Or tries to, anyway. He held the envelope, turning it over. Mom said you just left without saying anything. That's true. I did. And I'm sorry for that. You deserved better. He nodded but didn't say anything else. Saturday, I said. 3 p.m., library, if you want. Okay. Unrestricted, I showed up at 2:30 because I'm the kind of person who shows up early to everything. The library was one of those small-town libraries that felt like someone's grandmother's house. Lots of wood paneling, smell of old books, big windows. I found a table near the back and sat with a book about woodworking that I wasn't actually reading. I was watching the door. 3 o'clock came. Then 3:05, 3:10. By 3:15, I'd accepted he wasn't coming. Then at 3:17, the door opened, and there he was. Taller than I remembered, nervous, clutching his backpack. Our eyes met, and he said so quietly I almost missed it. Dad. Not Mike. Dad. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear that word until it hit me. Hey, bud. I stood, not sure if I should hug him or shake his hand. You came. Yeah. I read your letter like 15 times, and I think we should talk. So we sat and we talked. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe I hadn't destroyed everything after all. We started meeting every other Saturday. Sometimes we'd talk about serious stuff, how he was doing, what life was like at home. Other times we'd just talk about school, video games, this girl he liked. Those meetings became my anchor, proof that I mattered to someone. Work was going well too. Karen gave me a small raise, 50 cents more an hour, but it felt like winning the lottery. She started giving me more responsibility, ordering inventory, training new employees. You're good at this, she told me. Better than good. You ever think about managing your own place? Not really. Just trying to keep my head above water. Well, when you're ready to do more than tread water, let me know. The YouTube channel kept growing. I posted twice a week and people kept watching. Ad revenue, sponsorships, affiliate links. It wasn't quit your day job money yet, but it was pay rent and eat real food money. It was freedom money. Then around month 5, Ben mentioned during one of our Saturday meetings that Rachel had been asking about me a lot. Just where you're living, what you're doing, if you have a job. She's been weird about it, more interested than she should be. How interested are we talking? I don't know. Maybe somewhere between curious and consulting with lawyers. She saw one of your YouTube videos, the one about the circular saw. My gut tightened. I could see it coming. And what did she say? Ben looked uncomfortable. She said it's interesting that you have money for video equipment, but apparently didn't have money for the family. Gungo it was. The narrative was forming. Mike the deadbeat who abandoned his family and is now living it up making YouTube videos while his poor wife struggles. Never mind that the equipment was my iPhone propped on books. Never mind that every dollar I'd earned was mine. Facts didn't matter when someone was building a story. Ben, I need you to be honest. Do you think your mom is going to try to come after me for money? He didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. I don't know. Maybe. She's been talking to Aunt Diane a lot. Diane was Rachel's older sister, a corporate lawyer who'd never liked me. So I did what any reasonable paranoid person would do. I called my buddy Dave from high school who now ran an accounting firm. We met the next day at his office. You want to protect your assets from your wife, he said. Soon to be ex-wife. And yeah, is that bad? It's smart, especially if you think she's going to come after you. I laid it all out. The YouTube channel making decent money, the growing savings account, the truck I'd bought, the sponsorships. And you left how many months ago? 5. Have you filed for divorce? No. Dave gave me that look professionals give when you've said something incredibly dumb. Mike, buddy, you need to file like yesterday. He explained setting up an LLC for my business, separating personal and business finances, establishing a trust. It made my head hurt, but by the end, I felt better. Not completely secure, but better. One more thing, Dave said. You should name a beneficiary for the trust. Someone who gets it if something happens to you. Raleigh. I didn't hesitate. Ben, my stepson. Dave nodded and made a note. That counts for something. Discharged. Later, I hired a lawyer named Laura, who specialized in asset protection. Her office was above a sandwich shop and smelled like pastrami. She was mid-40s with reading glasses on a chain and had this direct way of talking. So, you left your wife after she gave you a disappointment mug. You've been gone months. Haven't filed for divorce, started a successful YouTube channel, and now you think she's coming after you for money? When you say it like that, it sounds like a weird country song. Submissive over czar. Here's my advice. File for divorce now. Don't wait for her. You file first. You control the narrative. And document everything. Every dollar you earn, where it comes from, where it goes. Keep it separate from anything joint. Don't give her ammunition. She leaned forward. And most importantly, you thrive. You succeed so loudly that when people look at the situation, they don't see a man who abandoned his family. They see a man who left a toxic situation and built something better. Sometimes the best revenge is thriving so loud they can't stand the noise. I liked Laura. I left her office feeling prepared. I had an accountant, a lawyer, a plan. I had documentation and structures. The mug sat on my desk now, holding pens instead of pain. Every time I looked at it, I smiled, because they'd thought they were breaking me, but all they'd done was set me free. Then one night while scrolling Facebook on my fake account, because I'm apparently that petty, I saw a post from Rachel. Big announcement with a custom graphic. Graduation celebration. Join us in celebrating Ashley's achievement. Saturday, June 15, 6 p.m. Open house. All are welcome. All are welcome. That phrase got me. I wondered if all included the husband she'd demolished and reported missing. Probably not. But technically she'd said all were welcome, and I'm a big believer in taking people at their word. Frank thought going was a terrible idea. You're going to do what now? I'm going to the party, just to make an appearance, say congratulations, be civil. Mike, buddy, that's a terrible idea. Probably, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? What's the point? You've moved on. Because they need to see they didn't break me. Because Ashley's graduating. And despite everything, I helped raise that kid for 3 years. Because I want them to know I'm not hiding. Sluggish sighed. At least don't go alone. Nah, this is something I need to do myself. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. I put on my best jeans, a button-up I'd actually ironed, boots I'd cleaned until they looked almost new. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the confident guy staring back. The house looked exactly the same from outside. Same beige siding, same mailbox I'd installed. I could hear music, people laughing. For a second, I almost turned around. But then I remembered the mug, Rachel's Facebook post. Every joke at my expense. I walked up the driveway like I owned the place because, legally, I still half owned it. The party stopped. Not immediately, but like someone slowly turned down the volume. Conversations faltered. Someone dropped a cup. Rachel was near the drinks table, wine glass halfway to her lips, frozen. Her face went through surprise, confusion, anger, panic, landing on something that looked like she'd bitten a lemon. Ashley was by the cake table, wearing a blue dress and graduation cap that said, "Done," in glitter. She went pale. But Ben was sitting at a table with friends, and when he saw me, his whole face lit up. He stood, started walking toward me, and that was all the confirmation I needed. "Mike!" Rachel's voice cut through the silence. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, calm and easy. "Just dropping by to say congratulations. It is an open house, right? All are welcome." I could see her brain working, trying to figure out how to handle this without making a scene. "You can't just show up here." "Actually, I can. I'm still legally half owner of this property, and you did post that all were welcome. But don't worry, I'm not staying long." Crimson reached me and wrapped me in a hug right there in front of everyone. I'm glad you came. Me too, bud. I turned to Ashley, who was standing by the cake like a deer in headlights. I pulled a small wrapped box from my pocket. Congratulations on graduating. I know things are complicated, but I did help raise you for 3 years. That has to count for something. She took it slowly. What is it? Open it. Inside was a compact mirror. What's this for? I looked her right in the eyes. For self-reflection. Try it sometime. You might learn something. The crowd made this collective gasp. Rachel's face went from pale to red. How dare you? How dare I what? Show up and give your daughter a graduation gift? Be civil? Exist? I turned to face her fully. You posted on Facebook that I was missing. You told everyone I abandoned my family. But the truth is, I left because staying was slowly eliminating me. And the fact that you never once considered that maybe giving someone a disappointment mug on Father's Day might be hurtful, that says everything about why I left. It was a joke. Jokes are supposed to be funny, Rachel. That was just cruel, dressed up as humor. People were pulling out phones now. I didn't come here to cause a scene. I came to say congratulations to Ashley, to show Ben I'm still here for him, and to prove to myself I'm not afraid of you anymore. Mission accomplished. I started walking toward the gate, then stopped. Oh, and Rachel? You might want to check with your lawyer before you try to come after me for any money. Mine says you don't have a case, but feel free to try. I've got time and documentation. Do you? I got in my truck and drove away, smiling the entire way home. The fallout was swift. By Sunday morning, my phone was blowing up. Ben had texted, "That was the most savage thing I've ever seen. Mom's been pacing all night." Frank called asking if I'd lost my mind or finally found it. Random people from the party had gotten my number somehow, wanting to tell me they'd always thought Rachel was fake, and good for me for standing up for myself. That Sunday night, I did what I do best. Turn my life into content. I sat at my desk, set up my phone, and recorded what would become my most viewed video ever. Hey everyone, Mike here from Fix It Frank. Today we're not talking about tools or repairs. Today we're talking about the day my family gave me a mug for Father's Day that said, "World's biggest disappointment. Patriarch." I told the whole story honestly, without naming names or showing faces. The mug, the laughter, the leaving, the rebuilding. At the end, I held up the actual mug. This mug sits on my desk now, holding my pens, not my pain. Because when people label you as a disappointment, they're telling you about their expectations, not your worth. They expected me to stay and keep taking it. I disappointed them by choosing myself instead. Opened it with the title, "World's Biggest Disappointment. The day my family gave me freedom in a mug." It went viral. 500,000 views in 48 hours. The comments became this support group for people, mostly men, who'd been through similar situations. News outlets picked it up. I did interviews, always keeping it classy, never naming names. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Ashley. "I'm sorry. I read your post, watched your video. I didn't understand before. I'm sorry for the mug, for laughing, for not seeing what it was doing to you. I don't expect you to forgive me or want anything to do with me, but you deserve to know that I finally get it. You weren't the disappointment. We were disappointed in ourselves and took it out on you. That wasn't fair. I'm working on being better. I hope you're doing well. You seem happy in your videos. I'm glad." It wasn't a complete fix, but it was honest, and that was more than I'd gotten while living there. I wrote back thanking her and saying the offer for coffee was open if she wanted to talk. She never took me up on it, but knowing she'd reached out and grown enough to recognize what happened was enough. The divorce papers went through without contest. Rachel realized fighting would make her look worse, especially after my video. Sometimes the court of public opinion is more powerful than actual court. Now that mug still sits on my desk holding pens and paper clips. People ask why I keep it if it reminds me of bad times. But it reminds me that I survived, that I took the worst gift someone could give me and turned it into motivation. Every morning I grab a pen from that mug to write my to-do list, and every morning I smile. They thought that mug would define me. They were right, just not how they intended. It defined the moment I chose myself. The moment I decided that being called a disappointment by people who didn't value me was better than being valued by people who only saw me as a joke. I was the world's biggest disappointment to them. But to myself, I was finally enough. And that's the only opinion that really matters.